Alright, as you can see, there's a massive snowstorm that's going to be moving through the Northeast over the next couple of days, and the latest forecast model run has actually bumped up the snowfall totals where parts of Maine should now be getting 2 feet of snow. Before I get into this, I will say I make these forecast videos every single morning, so if you're somebody who enjoys following the weather, or you end up enjoying this video, you can subscribe to my channel. Alright, diving into my screen here, this is showing a snapshot of what this storm is going to bring to the Northeast in the way of snowfall. You can see basically all of Maine getting at least a foot of snow. Some of the higher elevation, colder places are going to be getting 2 feet of snow. The numbers really got bumped up for northern New Hampshire, where yesterday they were maybe saying 6 to 8 inches. Now they're saying northern New Hampshire could be getting 1.5 feet. And then we still have those bullseyes in New York, where we get some of the lake effect snow later in the forecast period, when really the winds start bringing down some cold air to New York. So clicking through the precipitation map, it first started showing up at about 1 a.m. this morning. And then by about 7 a.m. you might have been waking up to some light rain in parts of New York and Pennsylvania. You might have thought, it's going to be a little rainstorm, nothing too major. And then it really is going to intensify by about 1 p.m. today. Parts of Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, you're going to really see the rainfall just start pouring down. And then northern parts of Maine starts to see some light snowfall building in, again, by about 1 p.m. on Thursday. And then if you think that was a big intensification, wait till you see that. The low drops down to about 975 millibars, which is extremely low. And then you can see those heavy snowfall rates building in throughout basically all of Maine. All of Maine just getting maybe 1 inch to 2 inches of snow per hour at this point. Northern New Hampshire getting those same just extreme snowfall rates. Notice too that New York not really getting any precipitation at this point. Very western part of the state picking up a little bit of snow, but their snow is more later in the period. Again, this low though intensifies like crazy at about 7 p.m. tonight. So 7 p.m. Thursday, if you're living in Maine, you are going to want to set up a time lapse or something, because there's going to be some huge snow totals building into your state. And the reason for that, I'll show a couple maps in a second that really explain it, but there's going to be strong winds just pushing in a ton of moisture. At the same time, cold air is getting pulled down. Those are basically the 2 boxes you want to check if you want some extreme snowfall accumulations. You got the moisture to make the precipitation, and then you got cold air so that precipitation falls as snow. And then moving through really Thursday night into Friday morning, that low doesn't just move off. Right here you see it's in really southern Maine, and then 6 hours later it's barely even moved, and it's actually intensified down to 968 millibars. I really had to look really close at my screen there. I probably need some glasses. At this point though, still some really heavy snow building into Maine, and then you start to see some of it in northern Vermont at this time too. This is again looking at 1 a.m. on Friday. And then 7 a.m. on Friday is when we start to see the cold air fill in throughout the rest of the Northeast. It really trails the system by about 12 hours. And then New York starts picking up some good snow at this time. All of Vermont getting some snow at this point. And especially really off of the Great Lakes, where the winds are just going to be whipping up some lake effect snow for really most of the locations in New York that are downwind from the lakes. So like I said, the really big story with this one is the winds. That's what's really driving the intensification of the storm. And looking at about 1 a.m. this morning, doesn't really look like there's all that much going on in the jet stream. This is, actually kind of a weak looking jet stream. These red colors, you basically will always see this in the jet stream. That's about maybe 100 knot winds. But watch as I move throughout the day Thursday, you see the jet stream really intensifies. That is about as strong as you're ever going to see it. So it went from kind of below average to as strong as you are ever going to see the jet stream. And that basically just pivots around the Northeast, leading to the intensification of the storm and some really high winds on the surface. I know you might be thinking, yeah, 170 knot winds way up in the sky, who cares? But some of those winds propagate down, and we're going to be getting maybe 35, 40 mile per hour gusts on the surface, basically throughout the entire Northeast. And one thing that does is you're dropping a lot of snowfall with this one. 2 feet of snow in Maine. If you combine that with 40 mile per hour winds, you're not going to be able to see a thing. That's going to lead to some whiteout conditions, complete blizzard. We don't have a blizzard warning yet, but I think we're going to get one. As this storm continues to intensify, we drop snow, we have 40 mile per hour winds. There's no way you're seeing anything. So watch as this low moves through here. 2 things I want you to notice on this map: how extreme the winds look and the cold air that fills into the Northeast. You can see at this point, this is showing at about 7 a.m. this morning for the Northeast. Not very cold. You can see most of Maine is in the high 30s to mid 40s. New York, you're in the high 40s, possibly 50s. And so if you were to get precipitation, actually it showed this morning you were just getting rain. You're getting that light rain. And then here's when, remember, that rain started to intensify throughout Vermont and Massachusetts. Well, that's because these winds are starting to push in some of that moisture. And notice this low says 985 millibars. That itself is pretty low, but as these winds continue to just push in moisture and tighten these isobars, this low is actually going to drop down into the 960s. It's pretty rare that you see a low drop into the 960s. That really shows that this is going to be a big storm for the Northeast. And the other thing you'll notice, as these winds circulate around the low, they're counterclockwise. So on the right side, they're pushing in a ton of moisture. That's going to create a bunch of all the precipitation, and the reason we're getting 2 feet of snow. The other reason we're getting 2 feet of snow is this cold air that gets pulled down by the northerly winds on the left side of the low. You can see that cold air really fills into the Northeast throughout the day, Thursday, and then looking into Friday, that cold air still there. That's when we start getting some good lake effect snow. For New York, you can see really extreme winds just going right over the lakes into these cold pockets of air, and that's where we're going to be picking up some pretty good lake effect snow. So if we look at the 24-hour accumulated snowfall, this right here is showing how much snow you're going to pick up by about 7 p.m. tonight. You see, not all that much for New York, but Maine has already started to pick up some good snow, maybe 9 inches to a foot in western Maine and northern New Hampshire. Basically all of Maine getting snow at this point though. And if you think this is a lot of snow, just wait till I click through here. By about 1 a.m. on Friday, western Maine and basically throughout majority of Maine has picked up a foot of snow at this point, but western Maine already at 1.5 feet just in the last 24 hours. You can see northern New Hampshire over 1 foot, maybe 1.5 feet in the higher elevation, colder places. And then we start to see a little lake effect show up for western New York and northwestern Pennsylvania by about 7 a.m. on Friday. You could start accumulating some good snow there. And again, the heavy snow just continues for Maine, 1.5 feet building in throughout Sunday night to Friday afternoon. Maine is just going to be getting drenched with snow, and it really continues throughout the day Friday. This is showing Friday at about 7 p.m. You can see Maine has still picked up about 1 foot in the last 24 hours, and then the snow, you'll see it just starts to fill in throughout the rest of New York and Vermont, where we're picking up maybe 3 to 5 inches in the places where those winds are going to be really going over the lakes. And then the cold air gets pulled down into Vermont. That's why we're getting maybe 5 inches of snow in northern Vermont. So just to look at the total accumulated snowfall with this one, we got 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow in Maine. That's really the bullseye of the storm. There's another little bullseye in northern New Hampshire where we're likely getting 1.5 feet. I will say it again. The probabilities, I always like looking at probabilities. They're showing about 90 to 95% chance that this area in Maine does in fact get 1.5 feet of snow. So this is very likely that it's going to happen. The other likely event is the lake effect showing up for parts of New York and northwestern Pennsylvania, where we're going to be getting maybe 2 to 4 inches of snow. This really fills in throughout the day Friday, so I will be making another forecast video early tomorrow morning to update you guys on what the forecast models are showing. If the trend continues, who knows, maybe this 2 feet of snow turns into 3 feet of snow. The other thing, over Easter and then this upcoming Monday, there is a massive storm that's going to be building in throughout basically the eastern half of the country. Midwest, Southeast, and Northeast are all going to be affected by this massive storm coming in over Easter. And I actually just filmed a forecast video going over that entire storm. So if you want to see that one, you could check out my channel or just click on my forecast playlist. And I guess two last questions for you. Did you learn something in this video? And did you enjoy it? If you answered yes to either of those, you can subscribe to my channel so that you can see more of my content in the future and hopefully learn more in the future. So thanks for watching.